Good evening and welcome to the Learning Curve webinar for today. We have in conversation today, we have Yogesh GR. I'll begin by introducing Yogesh. Yogesh GR leads the Early Childhood Education Initiative of the Azim Premji Foundation at Sangareddy district of Telangana. He's been instrumental in mentoring a team of resource persons in ECE and creating a scalable multimodal engagement for the capacity building of Anganwadi teachers. He also supports other district institutes across the foundation in this area. Prior to this, he worked in the capacity building of primary and upper primary teachers at Puducherry District Institute of the foundation. Yogesh has been working in the field of education, IT and management for over 24 years in various capacities. So welcome, Yogesh. Yes, Shefali.
Hi everyone. Sorry, there was some issue with our network, and so Shobha has already introduced Yogesh. Let me introduce Shobha to everyone, and just give you a brief about this webinar. We are back in the new year with an interesting discussion as part of our Learning Curve webinar series. Azim Premji University's Learning Curve is a magazine on primary school education. It is available in print and online in English, Hindi, and Kannada. You can go to the links provided on the screen to read and subscribe to it. We are starting 2023 with a very interesting discussion on our current issue, nurturing well-being in school, and talking to us about early childhood education and practices in Anganwadis are two members of the Azim Premji Foundation. Shobha will be speaking to Yogesh, and she has already introduced Yogesh. Shobha Kavoori is a member of the Bengaluru District Institute Azim Premji Foundation. She has been a teacher and has been involved in educational and development initiatives in Rajasthan. She was part of the Azim Premji Foundation schools team that set up the first 6 Azim Premji schools. She has worked extensively in the areas of curriculum development, teacher professional development, and language development in these schools. Welcome, Shobha. And now it's over to you again.
Yeah, thanks, Shefali. What do we do with all the IT things that happen to all of us? But thank you. Thanks a lot for that introduction. So, namaste and good evening. So, the Anganwadi program was initiated back in 1975 as a flagship program for early childhood care and development with the aim to address malnutrition amongst young children and women of reproductive age. So, before we start on well-being in Anganwadis, just to set the context, Yogesh, can we talk a little about Anganwadis and very specifically focus on a couple of questions that I thought might be relevant? So one is, immediately that comes to mind, what are the benefits of sending children to Anganwadis? Two, what part does foundational literacy and numeracy, what part does that play in Anganwadis? And as we all know, it started as early as 1975. So, how is it? How are the new generation? How is the new generation Anganwadi different from the past? So, over to you, Yogesh. Yeah, thank you.
So, wish you all a wonderful new year, and thanks for having me here to talk about early childhood education. It's something close to my heart. Yes, Shobha, the integrated child development services scheme was started in 2nd October 1975. It's almost in next 2 years it's going to be 50 years of its operational, and it's one of the largest and unique community-based program for early childhood care and education. and it has a lot of beneficiaries all around the country. Uh, Even though initially the major focus was on the malnutrition and health, uh, slowly the Anganwadi system has started focusing on giving, providing opportunities for learning, so that children can, who are attending Anganwadi, can have an all-round development. Now, in fact, major prominence has been given on early childhood education in our National Education Policy 2020, which states that over 85% of brain development occurs, the cumulative brain development occurs prior to the age of 6. Right? So it's very critical that the child gets lot of simulation, right? Lot of opportunities for the the child to explore and keep learning in these critical years, so that the child can develop a healthy brain, right? And become ready to school, right? So what do I mean by ready to school is that when a child comes to Anganwadi center, the Anganwadi teacher like initially supports in nurturing habits and self-help skills. Now, what do I mean by self-help skills is that simple hygiene and toileting, active practice, like hand washing, right? And making the child eat independently, right? And dressing and grooming. These are, small self-help skills that the child learns when it comes to Anganwadi center. And the second is that the child gets used to, day routine. So from home environment, shifting to a Anganwadi, that's a big shift which is happening. And from Anganwadi, there is a second shift which happens at around 5 or 6 to the school environment. So in Anganwadi, you can say as a intermediate, right, where the child gets accustomed to the day routine activities, which would in first and primary classes, that would be called timetable, right? But in like Anganwadi, it's basically day routine. They get used to the day routine activities. Also, the in Anganwadi, the ability of the child, right, to focus on one simple task for a longer period of time, the attention span that the child has, increases in Anganwadi, center. Like apart from this, there are other like benefits which are like social skills get developed, emotional regulation happens, language skill gets developed. These are the major benefits the child gets by attending Anganwadi regularly. Right? On your on your question on what part does foundational literacy and numeracy play in Anganwadi experience, right? In fact, 2 weeks back, I had visited an Anganwadi in an underdeveloped district in Western India, right? And the children's the child teacher asked one child to show to go through the numbers, right? The child took a stick and went to the chart which had 1 to 100 numbers, and the child started pointing 1 2 3, and child went up to 20, right? Like when I was basically seeing it, I felt initially wow, right? Because child going through number till 20. But then when I started asking the child to identify a particular number, like for example 6, like the child was not able to identify that number. Similarly, when child was asked to say what comes after 6 or 7, the child was not able to say, right? Now this is the challenge which many of the Anganwadi teachers face, because they jump into teaching new numbers through rote memorization, right? And because of, without really going into basic pre-numeracy concepts like big, small, matching, comparing, sorting, ordering. These basic concepts are not gone through. They jump through the jump into number concept. So the initially the child needs to get a clear understanding of number sense, that number 5 is not just a symbol and the sound associated with it, but also can represent something in the child's surrounding. Like for example, 5 bags, 5 water bottles, like 5 balls, like that if Anganwadi teacher is able to provide these experiences in early years, then they can easily develop the act skills at later in later years. Okay? This is very similar to this very same thing in literacy too, right? Providing good opportunity for pre-reading and pre-writing skills, at early years develops interest in child, right, in reading and learning. So that can help in building the later building into reading and writing skills at later point when they go into the like primary grades. So a good foundation of literacy and numeracy skills has a positive impact, right, on learning of a child in when the child goes into the upper class, and that foundation can be given at the Anganwadi level. And if a good teacher provides these opportunities on a continuous basis, then the like child can easily be ready for school. And once the child goes into school, the basic because basic foundation is set, it becomes easy for the primary teachers to build upon that foundation and build upon the literacy and numeracy skills, right? uh, and you mentioned that the new generation Anganwadi, like the mission Saksham Anganwadi 2021, which was which was it basically has been made as a mission mode, right? And I think three main important changes which I feel has been introduced in this Saksham Anganwadi is are firstly, previously the nutrition part was focusing on only pregnant and lactating mothers. Right now, it has been extended to adolescent girls in the age of 14 to 18. Right, especially in aspirational districts and northeast region, where many districts are not well developed. Right, and also in these districts, the normally the girls get married early, so it's very important to focus on nutrition for from adolescence age itself. Then secondly, like previously the Anganwadi system was focusing primarily on nutrition, right? Now there's a good shift and like emphasis on early childhood education is also being made, right? Like for example, the functionaries previously would talk about when during meetings when they talk to Anganwadi teachers, they would be talking about how important nutrition is. But nowadays they they say that nutrition and preschool education are like two eyes, so they go hand in hand, and we need to put equal focus on both these things. So these are I think and third thing which is very important in the modern new generation Anganwadis are that mission Saksham Anganwadi is also focusing on upgrading the Anganwadi infrastructure, right? They importantly are planning to provide learning play materials to the children, which will directly be beneficial for child development.
Right. And you also mentioned socio-emotional learning. You mentioned that as well. And the focus of your article is largely on well-being in Anganwadis. Uh, there is a definite order of the four aspects of well-being that you've taken in the article: physical, mental, social, and emotional. Now, my question is there some significance in this order? A, and B, how closely are these four aspects linked, related, and can one exist without the other, really? So,
Yeah. So
yes, Yogesh.
yeah, Shobha. So overall, if you see, there are two main aspects, right? One is the physical well-being that I have talked about, and second is the mental well-being of a child. Now, when you take up physical well-being, right? These physical well-being has three main components. One is nutrition, right? The second is physical development of the child, and third is the health of the child. Right now, like
Right.
2 years back, there was a national family, health survey, which had reported that under the age of 5, right, almost 35% of children are stunted. Right? Their height is lower for their age, and about 19% were showing wasting, right, which means that low weight for height, ratio, and about 32% were underweight. Right? Uh, like if we see the history on nutrition, like in ICDS, and apart beyond ICDS also, like Kumarasamy Kamaraj, who was the chief minister of Tamil Nadu. He introduced midday meals. He was the first to introduce midday meals in schools. And what he said was, how can a hungry child learn? Which is a very powerful question. Like now, and it was very intuitive also, right? And but it took a Supreme Court order in 2002 to make all state implement this midday meals, right? So almost 42 years gap in that happening. To a larger extent, the ICDS has helped in this achieving this goal. And it's not just when it comes to nutrition, it's not just providing food, but also providing a balanced nutrition, which is very important. The second component in physical well-being is physical development. Right? Now, in Anganwadi, right, the teacher provides opportunities for child to develop their fine and gross motor skills, through activities, through outdoor play, like through games, right? And this helps in good physical development for the child. And third is help, which Anganwadi teacher in like conjunction with ASHA and A&M health department does work together for providing immunization so that the child remains healthy. So these three aspects, when we put together, that would constitute a child's physical well-being, right? Oh, and this physical well-being is very essential, right, for a child's mental well-being. This forms the basis, right? Um, like and in mental well-being, if you take there are again four aspects to these mental well-being. First is, of course, providing, the teacher should provide safe enabling environment in Anganwadi center, so that the child feels safe to express themselves. And this is very critical, right? The providing safe environment is very critical for the social and emotional development to happen. Right? In fact, 1 month back, I visited
Right.
Anganwadi center in a tribal area. Teacher gave free play for the children, where children would go into different play corners, and they would play with the materials which are available in the play corners, right? And like one child came into the Anganwadi, and as the child came in, right, the group of children who were next to the door, they greeted the child, telling good morning Shiva, right? And at that time, the teacher was like collecting all materials for that day's activities. The child came in, went and kept the bag, kept water bottle in a designated place where they used to keep, and then the child went and joined one of the play groups, right, and started playing. And when the child joined the other play group, the child also the other children also started like acknowledging the child by greeting them. Now, this kind of a practice cannot happen like unless a teacher does this on a regular basis, right? Once this teacher models this on a regular basis, then it gets built into all the children in the Anganwadi, right? And that forms the basis for for the child to express itself, right? And this cannot happen unless a safe teacher provides a safe environment for the child. And one more thing is that the social and emotional development, right? Even though in the article I have explained it in different section, in reality, both these things are closely intertwined and intertwined, and there's a huge overlap in between them. And in fact, this development happens in parallel. So yeah, physical development is basis for the mental development, and enabling environment would for the child to develop the social and emotional development to happen. All these things are very closely related to each other, and they happen in parallel.
Right. So, when you talked about emotional development, one of the things you have mentioned is that you use two terms, self-awareness and self-regulation. They are obviously significant and related. So, can you tell us a little more on that?
Yes, Shobha. I'll give you an example which happened in one of
Yeah.
the Anganwadi center to understand more on these two terminologies. Right? Like one child, his name is Vicky, and he was playing in a one puzzle corner where he basically was taking a building block, and he was building using that blocks. And another child who was next to Vicky, Prakash, he came in and he also wanted to play, so he took some of the blocks, right? Now Vicky now tried to get back those blocks, right? Because he was playing with it initially, and so he pushed Prakash, and Prakash fell down and he started crying. Now a teacher who was observing this, she intervened, and she initially consoled Prakash, gave him a small car tie and said go play. Now and then she started interacting with Vicky. Now like initially she went next to Vicky, and then she as Vicky was continued to play with his blocks, she gently asked why did you push Prakash? For that the child said Prakash took away my blocks that I was playing with. So then she asked, how did you feel when Prakash took away those blocks? Then Vicky said, I felt angry. Right? Now the child recognizing how he or she feels, right? That is basically self-awareness. And
Interesting. Sorry, I'll just, I'll stop you there, because that,
yeah,
in fact, is my second question to you, which is
right.
you have, in fact, very clearly mentioned that identifying and naming the emotion is a very important aspect for them being well adjusted later in life. So I suppose this is a very good example and illustration of exactly that point.
Mm.
Um, so please go ahead. I just thought, it was
Yeah,
coming directly into that. So yes, please go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And now the teacher, after giving this self-awareness of linking what the child was feeling to a emotion, right? After that, teacher further asked, right, how did you feel? How would you feel if someone else pushes you, right? Now the Vicky said, I would feel sad. Some children can could also say if I fall down, it will pain or hurt, I'll get hurt. But then the teacher said, would you like if someone else pushes you down, right? So now what the teacher is trying to do is that teacher is trying to put Vicky into Prakash's shoe and empathize with him. So then when Prakash, then she further asked Vicky, when Prakash took away the toys, is there any other thing that you could have done, right? Now initially Vicky didn't answer for that. He continued to play. So sometimes children would not be able to generate different possibilities or different actions which they can take. Now, so the teacher here supported him and said that you could have gone and asked him back the blocks that he took. Right? That's one thing. Or you could have either come and informed me or helper, so that we could have intervened. So these are different options teacher had generated and given it to the option. So the child realizing that there are various options, right, and he can choose one from these options which is appropriate for that particular like situation. That's basically self-regulation. So and it doesn't these kind of things doesn't come in one or two interactions. The teacher must have patience to and need to keep having these conversations with children on a regular basis, so that this whole self-awareness and self-regulation of emotions comes in.
Right. So conversations is one thing you mentioned, and I think you also mentioned play and stories as some other, ways in which. So, teachers in the classroom do struggle with kind of, ensuring uh, some kind of overall development of children. So some tips, if you could give on ways or opportunities that they can tap in to it, to make this possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is one. Emotional development and social well-being is one of the areas where it teachers struggle. Like for example, 4 years back, we did a learner assessment, right, with children's. A learner assessment in primary or upper primary, it would involve paper pencil test, right? So, but in Anganwadi or preschool, this paper pencil test would not work out. So in Sangareddy, we have developed a learner assessment tool, which is a set of games, activities that can be done with children, and thereby assessing them based on their responses or action for on that activity or game, right? And out of the 5 domains of development, the physical, language development, cognitive development, socio-emotional development, and creative development, we found that socio-emotional development score was the least among the children's, right? uh, when we went back into the curriculum, there were very few activities, direct activities, that were there specifically focused on emotional development. Right? So then we started, emphasizing in our workshops with teachers. We started emphasizing and on 4 areas, like where social, which could lead to a good social emotional development in children's. The first of that area is, as I told you, having conversation, right? Circle time conversation. The second is storytelling. Right? The third is role play, and fourth is free play. Right? Now, first on the circle time conversation, right? The circle time is when teacher and children would sit in a circle and have conversation on particular theme or a topic, right? So we enable the teacher into having conversation on emotions and feeling. Like for example, teacher would ask the children, how are you feeling today, right? And like some children might say happy, some children might be sad. Then further probing question is that, why are you feeling happy, why are you feeling sad? So that time children would start saying why they felt happy, why they felt sad. That way, that is one way of like getting this going on. The second is storytelling. Like there are a lot of opportunities to learn about different emotions in stories, right? And it depends on teacher to highlight these emotions through voice modulation, right, facial expression, right, and emphasize on them, so that the child would be able to like see the emotions, understand them, and learn from that, right? We'll show a small video, like of which was taken in an Anganwadi center, right? When the teacher
Please go ahead.
was telling a story.
Sure, please go ahead.
చీపురు ఏమన్నదంట, నీ పేరు నీకే గుర్తులేదు, నాకేం తెలుసు, నేను నూకి నూకి అలసిపోయినా. ఎట్లా అలసిపోయింది చీపురు నూకి నూకి? ఎట్లా ఏడుస్తున్నానా అని ఏడ్చుకుంటా పోయి, అయ్యో చీపురు ఏమన్నదంట, నీ పేరు నీకే గుర్తులేదు, నాకేం తెలుసు, నేను నూకి నూకి అలసిపోయినా. ఎట్లా అలసిపోయింది చీపురు నూకి నూకి? అలసిపోయినా, నాకేం తెలుసు పో అన్నదంట. అయ్యో అని మెల్లగా ఏడ్చుకుంటుందంట. ఇక ఏడ్చుకుంటా డింగ్ 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 అని నీళ్ళ మీద.
Yeah. So if you see this, clipping, the teacher, when telling that story, she got involved into that story, and whatever the emotions that the character in that story was facing, she was expressing it, right? And when this kind of an expression happens, the children would basically see that, and they learn about learn this. That's the second area. The third area is role play, right? Role play is when children would take up each character in a story, and then they would enact that, then they would enact that story, right? Role playing is another way of, in a way where children, can empathize with the character in the story that they enact. So this is one other way of getting this. And finally, during free play, like the example that I had given previously, during free play there is a lot of situations which would arise where children would get into small fights, right? Or arguments. All right, then teacher needs to use these opportunities as teachable moments and demonstrate or teach the conflict resolution to the children to enable that emotional development to happen.
Great. So, Yogesh, there are two tips which you have shared, which are very important, I would think. One is spending quality time with children, and the second is responding to, to the feelings of children. We saw something with the teacher when she's asking just now in that little clipping. But before you get into that, Shefali, any questions from the audience that we might want to take at this stage?
No, there aren't any questions. We can go ahead as soon as we get
We
something.
can go ahead.
Yes, please.
Wonderful. So yes, yes, please go ahead, Yogesh, because I think these are very important and huge bits. So maybe you could tell us a little more on this.
Yeah. So see, spending time with children and spending quality time with children, these two things has a like difference. Like that difference I can say with few examples, right? For example, during having conversation in circle time, right? As you when like a teacher is talking about animal theme, right, with the children, right? She can go about talking about various animals, its domestic animals, wild animals, its features, uses, and finish off the conversation, right? So this is also a type of conversation. But then how this would not be a long lasting benefit for the children, because here the teacher spends a lot of time in passing on, giving on information about animals, and children are receiving, right? But the what we do in workshop is that we train, we do capacity building of teachers to ask children about animals, because they already are have seen and experienced various animals in their surrounding. So when teacher asks about these things, then they would start expressing themselves, and listening to these listening to the children, and from that building a conversation, right? Wherein like that would be much more value add. And and next is that about 70% of the time, right, the teacher needs to let children talk, and 30% of the time she should do that facilitation in that conversation, right? And so that's when it becomes a quality conversation, right? having a normal conversation versus having a quality conversation, right? Like similarly, during free play, right, the teacher could either leave the children to play all to themselves, right, or the teacher can observe, right, and wherever the children would need support, she could scaffold. Like for example, when if children are playing with few blocks, and beyond certain height, if the blocks are falling down, right, then a teacher could subtly give them a suggestion that saying, why don't you keep one block next to the previous block and build them in parallel. So these kinds of scaffolding techniques, if a teacher uses, then that becomes an opportunity for teacher to spend quality time with children. Then also, another aspect which is very important is that the teacher needs to spend a lot of time listening to their stories, their narration of what happened at home, their likes, their dislikes, their opinions, their views, and on the things that interest them, right? This kind of listening would convey that teacher is caring for them, respecting them, and this builds in trust and with the teacher, and that would again result in gaining of confidence for the children. So these are the ways. And other thing is that during lunch and breaks, when children are playing together, teacher could listen to their conversations and acknowledge them, acknowledge that, and if need be, respond to them. And if children are engaging the teacher in that conversation, get into that conversation part. These are ways in which teacher can spend quality time with children, and also keep listening to them, keep having an open channel of listening, and building on that. And also what happens is that like when teacher is doing activities with the children, right, like sometimes children might feel like very active, right? They might not want to listen to a story, so they have a lot of energy. So that time the teacher needs to look at these cues and switch to a much more high energy activity, right? Like for example, outdoor play or game, and then come back to a low energy activity, which would basically be sitting down and listening to story, or using crayons and drawing. So this way of observing children and taking cue from them, and having activities designed and executed with them, these are the things that would help children develop much more better.
Yeah. So interesting, Yogesh, and we have a question here, in fact, because you mentioned storytelling. So there's somebody who would, the question is, should a teacher focus on language development or social development during storytelling? What is more important?
Oh yeah, no, good. Like, see, now what happens is that normally in these areas, domains of development, right? For understanding purpose, we see these domains differently, but in reality, if you see, all these are intertwined, right? Now, when telling a story, like language development happens, right? Social development could happen, emotional development could happen. So there's no fixed saying that this activity is belongs to this
Specifically.
domain. Yeah. So all domains happens. Now what happens is that, see, apart from language, so naturally when a teacher is telling story, language development is something which very naturally would happen because of the story development. But then like if the teacher is focusing on these emotions, then emotion development would also happen in parallel with them. So like there's no this or that. Teacher needs to focus on both these things, how to enable both these things, so that child can get a much more richer experience than it can happen when teacher would only focus on one the part of domain of development.
Right. So storytelling essentially simultaneously does both these things, and it's not like one has a one is more important or from the other, or one has to emphasize one or the other. They go together, and storytelling, in fact, is a very great medium to, to ensure overall all these aspects get addressed. Yeah, thanks, Yogesh. We have another question. Since large part of Anganwadi Didi went into non-educational activities, even departments see them differently. How to persuade Anganwadi Didi and department for such educational activities apart from nutritional activities? So, how do you help them to, address all the other things as well? Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for the question, please.
yeah. So no, what happens is that yes, if you really take the different services that Anganwadi teacher needs to do, there are many services like so apart from building capacity in different pedagogies and how to do, we also help teacher into managing her time better, right? Like so for example, I would say like any Anganwadi teacher, when you go and ask them how do you manage records, right? They will say, oh my god, I have 13 registers, I have 14 registers, and this needs to be updated, that needs to be better. That used to be a huge they used to see that as a huge problem. But then what we did was we went and analyzed like these records, and said what is the frequency of updating these records, right? That time we found that like there are only very few registers, like for example the attendance register, like which needs to be updated on a daily basis. This attendance children attendance would become part of the circle time activity. During circle time activity itself, that that would basically that register would get filled. Like similarly, there are other two registers which the teacher needs to do on a daily basis. Now when during after lunch, there's a nap time where children would go for sleep about 1 to 2 hours, right? During this time, we tell them it would take about 15 to 20 minutes or maximum half an hour for you to fill up these three registers, which needs to be done on a daily basis, right? And on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis, these are the 5 registers which needs to be done. On monthly basis, these are the rest of the registers which needs to be done. So if she can plan her time appropriately, then it basically declutters the time, like the how they see the task, and that would motivate them to do that. Because normally when there is a lot of hesitant, the teacher would not start even doing filling any registers, and it would all pile up, and during month end they would spend 2 full days in doing 1 registers. So a good way of managing time is one thing that we enable the Anganwadi teachers to do, to enable her to be more active. Like the other thing, like another example which I would also give is that like when a teacher is telling story, like a pregnant woman will come for taking the midday meals. The teacher would stop the story, go and service the beneficiary, and then come back. Now by that time she comes back, that story has gone for a toss, right? The children are into different a world altogether. So now again she needs to restart telling that story. So what we what we basically suggested the Anganwadi teacher to do that is that have a time for this midday meal, saying that keep iterating to these beneficiaries, saying that midday meals will be given from 12 to 1 or 11:30 to 1, so that prior to that teacher would be able to spend her full focus on children and doing, and after 10:30 11 she can give services to these beneficiaries. And apart from that, apart from teacher, there's also helper. So helper also could provide these beneficiary support to these beneficiaries. So these are some way to help her in managing her time better, focusing on tasks that she needs to do, and completing it on a regular basis.
Yeah. So, in fact, Yogesh, you mentioned at some stage that there was a low score, I think, about the assessments you did, and there's a low score on emotional development. So, there's a question here. Could you tell us some more on the low score on emotional development in Anganwadis, if you could elaborate on that?
Yeah. See, the what do I mean by low score is that the children identifying emotions, right, and how the that is one aspect which the children were not able to do, right. And uh, so for questions like, in this situation, what would you feel in, and what makes you happy or what makes you sad? These are some questions which children were not able to answer, like, because initially, that identification of that emotion, and relating it to the feeling that they are having. So this connections, if that doesn't happen in Anganwadi center, that children will naturally not be able to exhibit these in the thing. So that has resulted in this low score in the emotional development domain. And then once children are given opportunities to address these things, like as I told you, the four areas where teacher can be capacitated, and she can go and give opportunities to the children, that would normally that because of that intervention, these scores would naturally increase, and children
Pick
would
up.
be much more. Yeah.
Right. So, see, one of the aspects which is obviously very important in children's education, and here as well, is the engagement of parents in Anganwadis. So, what are some initiatives that can be taken? A. And B, in the article, you have mentioned that if parents want a certain kind of behavior in their child, they need to model it. So, how can parents be taught to be self aware and emotionally mature?
Yeah, like see, the families are the first teachers to children. Children spend a lot of time with families, like in fact, national curriculum framework foundational stage, which got released recently, states that the relationship and engagement between the child and family during the early years is one of the most powerful predictors of child development, right? And the quality of the parent-child relationship, right, and interaction can influence children's learning and development deeply in early years, right? This is what the national curriculum framework foundational stage states. So it's very important. Community is very important. Family is very important part of the early years development. So, like, if you see the women and child department, child development department, they already have a platform, like, for engaging parents, right? It's called ECC Day, right? So every month, it's a mini parent teacher meeting, right? And every month, the the teacher needs to invite the parents, and spend time with them every third Saturday, to be particular. And during this time, like, she would basically talk about the children, talk about what activities children have done, and she can show the parents the drawings that she has done. So all these things can happen in that ECC Day. That's one platform which is already there, which can be used to engage parents. And like, how do a teacher, right, start to influence parents so that they can help in these emotional development, right? In one of the Anganwadi centers, right, like doing a ECC day, the teacher did one activity, right? She gave all members paper, and she asked them to think of something, like on which they are very angry, right? And direct it on the paper, piece of paper. The parent could like crush it, the parent could tear it, the parent could even stamp on it, right? Then like later, after the parents have started crushing it, now later the teacher asked the parent to open the sheet and make it as it was previously, right? Then naturally all parents started laughing and say, how can we bring back the paper to its original form? It's got crushed, there will be crumble marks in it, so how can it so then the teacher related the paper to child's mind, right? And then she said, when when we shout at children, right, or when we fight among ourselves before children, that stays in child's mind, right? And just like how you cannot bring a paper back to its original form, similarly we it will be difficult for us to rewind and take away that scar which is there in child's mind. So these are some activities that like teacher has done to make the parent reflect on their own behavior, how they behave with children, how they behave before children, and thereby trying to like change their behavior, right? That's one thing which comes to my mind. The second is that during parent teacher like the ECC day, parent teacher meeting, the teacher like when she is showing the like the what work the children have done to the parent, the teacher models in appreciating the child's work, right? And what she also encourages the parents to appreciate small efforts which the child does at home, right? So that that would basically accumulate, and each and every appreciation we give to a child, right, the child's self-confidence improves, right? The child's way, the child's would basically want to express itself more. So these are some ways in which we can use the existing ECC day platform, where teachers could work in like trying to change the behavior of parents in a positive way, which would be very helpful for the children's.
Yeah. Uh, One more thing that comes to mind is when you read about Anganwadis, Yogesh, one of the challenges that is frequently mentioned is the lack of or the absence of some kind of support from the community. Very often that's mentioned. So, what are some of the local community level channels that you think could support Anganwadi efforts to ensure overall development of the child? And if there are examples of that you could give us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So one thing is that if you take the ICDS, it's a community-based program, right? So naturally, the community connect which the which the Anganwadi teachers does with the community, that helps to get the support from them. Like what we have seen is that Bal Mela is one event that could happen in a village, like two or three Anganwadis in a village come together, and they basically have this Bal Mela where they bring all the children together and call all the community members and demonstrate the activities that are done in Anganwadi to them, right, to the community members. And the teacher, after doing this activity with the children, she explains why she did that activity with children, and how that activity can lead to development in children. Now what happens is that when community members look at these kinds of things, this is all new for them, right? And the perspective of the community members changes on Anganwadi, like why Anganwadi is there, what is the purpose of Anganwadi, what is the benefit of sending child to an Anganwadi. The community themselves realizes, right? And typically, in wherever villages, in whichever village the Bal Mela happens, we have seen that there is an increase in the child's regularity of coming to Anganwadi center, right? That increases because now parents and the community starts to understand, it's important for child to stay in Anganwadi, and these are the developments that happens in Anganwadi. It's not just a place for providing nutrition. That once that perspective comes in, naturally the regularity of the children's starts to increase. And because of this Bal Mela and ECC Day events, we have seen that community members start to recognize the importance of Anganwadi system. And in few examples are in a village, one of the sarpanch who attended the Bal Mela, like at the end of Bal Mela, he went and asked teacher, what help you want from the village. Then the teacher told that Anganwadi doesn't have a toilet, and children are made to go and open. Right now, that sarpanch in that meeting itself, he told that I will build an Anganwadi for the toilet for the Anganwadi. Now, similarly, in another Anganwadi center, the teacher encourages the parents to donate some toys for the center during the children's birthday, right? So that over a period of time, the number of toys would basically accumulate, right? In one Anganwadi center, there was no helper, right? And the local panchayat hired a person and made that person support a teacher till that position was filled. These are some change, some small changes, and there are lot of examples like this which I can give going. But this is how community can support the Anganwadi center, because ultimately it is the community's children who are getting benefited because of Anganwadi there.
True. We have another question here, if I might read it out. I'm working in a grassroots level organization at Bongaigaon, Assam. I am experiencing that none of any Anganwadi is active, even do not have a center, and not aware of educational activities. Schools take admission 5+ ages in pre-primary grade, and some of the schools have a teacher to take care of these children. What should I do to basically activate this Anganwadi as an expert, if you can help me?
Yeah, like unfortunately, if you take many of the district, not just Assam, many of the districts, especially where like tribal population is high, Anganwadis centers are next to non-operational. Right? During the vaccination drive that happened during the pandemic, we visited some of these tribal locations, and many of these tribal locations, villages had a namesake Anganwadi, but it was not functional. It was not opened. Children were playing outside. Food used to be prepared in Anganwadi's teacher's home and given to children. So these are some things which are happening. Right? What we could basically do is that, see, most of the time, right, like it is the Anganwadi teachers are not aware that preschool education is an important component, right? They are not aware that 85% of brain development happens during this stage of 0 to 6, right, when children are with them, right? Now, in many of the workshops that we do for the new teachers, when we basically keep those facts, like these facts before them, saying that this is the amount of speed at which the brain development happens during the early years, and the child is with you, right? And if you are able to provide good opportunities for the child, right, it can have a lifelong benefit for the child, this realization, if a teacher has, we have seen she goes back and starts doing activities. Whether she does a high quality activity or not is secondary, right? But that will slowly happen. But then she would want to start doing something, because ultimately, if you see, most of the children's coming to her center would be one or other relative of that teacher itself, because she is part of community. She Anganwadi teacher needs to be part of community. That's one requirement for selection of Anganwadi. She is in that village, right? So most of the children who come are the villages children, like her distant or close relatives. So there is that connection with them, and she would not naturally start doing activities. So this is one way we could activate a center which is not active. Right. Now, like many of the state governments have started creating curriculum on ECC, right? So if you go to the the local WCD website, there you'll be able to download the curriculum of that state, right? So many times the teachers are not given enough training, or they might not even know that what are the activities they need to do as part of this preschool education, which because of which they are not doing. So that's one other thing which could be done. Get Assam's like curriculum, and then try to sit with the teacher and tell them that these are the things that you could do with children's. And see, these are not very sophisticated things. Like, this is not like teaching a topic of light to children, where you need to know what is light, and deep into the knowledge of light. These are what activities Anganwadi teacher does with the children are very basic. Like they need to and any person can easily learn by going through the syllabus or curriculum, and get and can be, and that can be done with the children. So these are some of the things. And one of the places, like for example, if you take Telangana WCD website, there are a lot of video material which are available, where teacher shoots activities that they do and upload it, right? And this videos are there. So this it will be in Telugu, but then you could naturally most of it are games, and those games you could the teacher could learn from that easily. So these are few ways where the teachers places where it is not active, we could activate it and try to enable this to happen.
Great. Yogesh, there's so much to talk about Anganwadis, and there are all these, very well taken questions, and overall development of children, as you have correctly put out. It is the community, they are coming from there, so it is their responsibility as much. And as somebody here said, that if we could activate the existing Anganwadis, you've given wonderful tips and suggestions. So thank you. We are running now out of time. So yes, thanks a lot, Yogesh, for joining us in this. Hope, our best wishes for all those who are here, and a happy new year to everybody.
Yeah, I finally want to thank Sangareddy team, my team, and Anganwadi teachers in Sangareddy, because that's where I learn about EC on a continuous basis. So I just want to
As someone who has been to Sangareddy and met the team, I know how passionate you all are about it. So thank you, Yogesh, for sharing your insights with us today. Thank you, Shobha, for anchoring this so wonderfully. And thanks to each one of you who joined us today. Join us again on February 1st for another webinar from the Learning Curve magazine. Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks.
Namaste. Thank you.